Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Our Life Beyond, the podcast where we explore how to navigate and hopefully thrive through some of life's biggest transitions. I'm your co-host, Scott Dibben, and I've teamed up with my great friend and mentor, Connie King, to share some stories, strategies, and insights that helped us adapt to the ever-changing seasons of our life.
Whether your life transition is divorce, death of a loved one, switching careers, moving to a new city, or just trying to figure out what the hell is next, we're with you every step of the way. But always remember, we're not therapists, just fellow travelers with a knack for finding humor in the chaos, and maybe some untraditional method of overcoming what life dishes out to us. Hopefully, you'll have fun embarking on this journey. So now, let's get started.
I want to give a special thank you to Habit Coffee for sponsoring us. So if you're local to Springfield, you're probably aware of the miserable construction at Highway 60 and Farm Road 125 heading into Rogersville.
Yeah, right in the midst of all that progress is the Habit Coffee Company, a fantastic local, vagina-owned business. They're more than just a coffee shop. They serve delicious, scratch-made breakfast and lunch options. They have a state and county-inspected kitchen, and they love catering events. While it might take a bit of extra effort to reach them right now, they're excited about the upcoming expansion when the highway reopens this fall. Support the Habit Coffee Company and enjoy their incredible offerings today.
Thank you so much, Habit Coffee.
Hey, Scott.
Well, hello, Connie. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. What are we doing today, Connie?
I'm so excited today. So today we have a guest. It's our first guest of any of our podcasts, and it's a doozy. Like it is, I don't even know how to say it. So
I know you were excited, so it must be good.
It is good. So today what we're going to do is we're going to be talking to one of my dearest friends. I have known her since I think it was like 2006 we met, around in that 2006, 2008, and we homeschooled together. We met in the nursery holding babies.
Oh, wow.
And we became very close. And over the years, we have just, I guess we've fallen into each other in these moments of, like, we've been so vulnerable with each other. And when life got hard or when there was something we needed to talk about that was taboo maybe to the homeschool community or, anything like that, she and I could just rely on each other.
So this is just one of your people?
One of my people, yeah.
Awesome.
And over the years, she has gone through an amazing journey, like a butter. I don't know how to describe it. Because she has come out as this beautiful, strong, brave, courageous, I don't even know the words to use, woman that I just really look up to her and I look up to her story. And we will talk to her. She'll lead you through it. But basically, her story is she was married for 28 years. She has 6 children who, by the way, she's an amazing mother. I used to sit there and think, oh, I wish I raised my kids like she did because they're all so cute. They're all kind humans. And she had 6 kids, homeschooled. She was pretty ingrained in religion, and I'll let her talk about that a little more. But there was a point in her life where she started, I think, deconstructing religion. She started deconstructing her marriage, and she has now come out. She's now a lesbian, and she has a partner who is, you should see their relationship. It's really, really beautiful. Like, they're so respectful and so kind to each other. And it has just been an amazing story. And I think what she has to say will help people. I think it will enlighten people. And I think it will be just a really, really good lesson for people. So with that, I want to introduce one of my people, who is Jessie. Hey, Jessie.
Hello. Thank you so
Hey.
much for having me.
Thanks
I just
for being
adore
on
you,
here.
Connie.
Say that again.
I just adore you. You're just one of my most favorite people. And I'm so grateful for you and our friendship and the space that we've been able to create for each other over these last many years.
Yeah. What year was it that we met? Do you remember?
It was 2007 because Maya was only like a couple months old, I think.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah,
Who I
which is,
still
I don't
love
even know
that
how
girl.
that's happened, that she's 17 years ago now. Gosh.
Yeah. That's not cool. It's cool,
I
but
know
not.
it.
So Connie,
Yeah.
Connie talks through that you've went through several transitions.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Do you want to at least start with like how your life started and went through to where it is today and kind of some of the transitions you went through?
Yeah. Do an overview.
Sure.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay. So I grew up in a very small town in Northwest Kansas in a religious household. In a tiny town and religious household in the mid 80s, early 90s. So the time was just much different. And I think there's something in our culture that when you grew up in that time period and in that space, there was a set of expectations that you needed to follow. And you checked off all the boxes because what would people think? What would God think? What would family think? What would society think? And so you just kind of follow the script. Happily, I followed that script very happily. I think you're also maybe not completely consciously aware that you're following a script. I was married when I was 21. We went on to have 6 babies, and we were married for almost 27 years. We were together for, almost 28. And in that time period, I think it was important to me to raise my children in a home, and I felt like the only way that I could do that well was following this religious path. If I didn't have God, then there was no way anything that was going to work out. So we did, and we went to church. He grew up in a much different religion than I did. They were Sabbath keepers. It was just a different experience. At some point in time, I decided to follow that path with him. And so we became Sabbath keepers. I like to say that we went a little bit culty for a period of time. So we were a little bit culty. And then about the time that I met Connie, we started homeschooling, which is its own version of restrictive, culty environment, and this a new series of expectations. And you just follow the path, and it works very well until it doesn't. I think for me, there were a series of events that happened that started shaking everything for me. I took an Old Testament course at OTC to finish my degree, and there were so many things about religion that I started questioning, like, wait a second, none of this makes sense anymore. I'm very, very curious, and I ask a lot of questions. So when I didn't get answers that I liked or that made sense, it just made me go, it feels like there isn't a correct. So I started deconstructing my religion probably around 2011 or 2012. Another one of my dear friends also had 7 children, also was in the little bit culty homeschool world, was doing the same thing at the same time. And we came at that from very different directions, but at the same time. So that was supportive. My ex-husband also was going through a deconstruction, and I was always so grateful that we experienced that at the same time. So it didn't create a lot of conflict. We both were like, hey, none of this works for us anymore. and we were able to leave that space. Shortly thereafter, my mother-in-law passed away, and she was my rock. I mean, we lived really close to her. She was incredibly supportive, incredibly kind, just one of those people who would absolutely be a saint. And that altered my existence and the way I looked at the world in ways that I was not prepared for. Grief, Connie, I know you know this, is just something that until you've experienced it and clawed your way out of it or through it or however, it just alters everything. And so I think I started questioning a lot of things then, and it shook my foundation in a way that I wasn't prepared for. It altered the way I related to my spouse at the time, my kids, myself. And I think it opened me up to this new experience of how I wanted to live my life. That was in 2015. So over the last 9 years, there's something about grief, turning 40 that for me made me question how I wanted to live the rest of my life and what I was okay with and what I wanted to experience and what I wasn't anymore. And so I've always known there was this part of me that was attracted to women and so incredibly curious. And I also, from a very young age, knew that was just all in the not box, like just nope. I did, ironically, the first person I came out to was my husband at the time when we were 22, probably. Like, hey, I think that I've always been attracted to women. But it felt like this separate experience, or it was something that was just over my shoulder and not entirely embodied, if that makes sense. And so, I think over the last 9 years, for whatever reason, that has definitely been something that became less possible to ignore. And I'm still walking around in a marriage and 6 kids, and there's still a lot of expectations that I felt like I needed to uphold. And there's fear. Gosh, the fear, right? Like, I've been married for almost 27 years. I have 6 kids. What are people going to think? What am I going to be letting go of? What am I going to be stepping into? This unknown space. I like to say that I feel like the last 3 years in particular have been a lot of weeping and gnashing of teeth and the wearing of sackcloth and ashes. Like I never knew what that felt like. And that's the closest thing I can come to it now. Just really wrestling with myself, against myself, trying to hold on to something that didn't need to be held on to anymore, and really afraid of what my life would look like if I let it go.
So can we kind of stop there for a minute?
Yeah.
Because like at this point
I've got so many questions.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
The questions are going to start. Do you mind if we start asking? Because this is
absolutely
so intriguing. First of all, so I remember when your mother-in-law passed, and it was a huge thing. And grief does that. I think that's a huge thing for people, is when you experience grief, it's okay to say, wait, what the hell just happened? That's not how life was supposed to be. And you do start questioning everything, and you start going, that doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. So where yours may have even started before then, do you feel like that was the big, big thing that made you go, I got to find something different in life? Like, and what I mean by that is like, it knocked your trajectory off. Do you feel like that was what happened when she passed?
Yes, absolutely. Just my entire world shifted and altered, and something about trying to put it back together. Yeah, it just tilted everything.
Right. You couldn't go on the way it was because it didn't make sense.
Exactly.
I get that completely. Yeah.
So,
Scott.
yeah, I've got a couple questions, but we'll just go back and forth, Connie.
Okay.
So, you're from a small Midwest town, is that true?
Yes.
Okay. So, do you believe that even through school that you had some of these thoughts, and maybe because of where you were and the principles that you followed kept you from even looking at that side as far as lesbian, being gay, attracted to women, any of that, or do you feel like that it just took you a while to figure out who you are?
Oh, I think I knew on some level. I- I'm trying to feel like an analogy, like looking through glasses darkly, right? Like there's a knowing, but there's all these cultural filters that you're experiencing life through at the time that makes it harder to see or recognize or own and create safety for yourself, right? You're a young kid. There was some part of me that knew, let me say, there's some part of me that felt, because I didn't know. I acted on what I felt, that if I would have explored that or been curious, I would have maybe had a decision to make about my family's support or lack thereof at that point in time. And fear is a powerful motivator.
Oh, yes.
It is.
I never gave my family a chance to
So
love me through that.
in the 80s, which of course in the 80s, most of the people didn't come out if they were, did you have anybody that you knew in your circle or even outside of your circle that you thought was possibly
No.
gay? No? Right. Interesting.
Well, I had there was one kid in my high school that never came out. Nobody did that in my
Yeah.
hometown. There was, I think there was an understanding from most of his classmates, but there was never a public coming out. Um, and also, I'm not entirely sure that I understood that homosexuality encompassed men and women. I think the context that I had growing up was gay men. And I don't know that I fully comprehended or understood. And I certainly didn't have any examples of what gay women looked like or what that was or what the word for it would have been, lesbian even. It wasn't until I graduated high school and I moved to Lawrence, Kansas, that this other world opened up for me. And I laugh now because I moved to town and immediately all of my best friends were gay men, and we went to the Lilith Fair, and I had such great relationships with these lesbian women, and there was so much curiosity, and there was a part of me that just knew or felt very much like that wasn't a path that I could explore. But that was my circle. I spent my 21st birthday at the gay bars in Westport with all of my gay friends.
So was that before you got married then?
Yes, that was before. So,
Okay.
yeah, so that would have been the summer before I met my husband at the time. And we met, got engaged, and got married in less than 9 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so then you are on this new, and I always knew that I wanted to be a mother and have a family, and I think that that was probably not something that I was consciously aware of, but definitely there was an ordered path for how to have a family at that point in time.
Yes, I understand that. As a woman, I understand
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That you're just you're just supposed to. You're supposed to get married, have kids. In my case, be a stay-at-home mom. Then we homeschooled. So I think it's that same thing for a lot of women. I think my question, well, I'll let you continue your story, and here's why. Because I think I know your story pretty well from 3 years ago back. But your story from 3 years forward, which is interesting, I think is what I have more questions about. So let's continue from where you were at when you said, well, now that we've asked questions, I've kind of forgotten where we were at, but let's talk about from when you knew you were going to come out, when you were like, okay, what was that transition? What happened there that was the definitive, yes, I'm a lesbian. I need everybody to know it because that's how I'm going to live authentically. Let's start there.
So I think there's a couple pieces of information before I can come to that point.
Okay.
So my marriage, after my mother-in-law passed away, things all shifted, including what I felt like the way that my husband at the time and I related, right? It changed the dynamics of our relationship, from my perspective. So there's that happening. And then I think the last 3 years in that space have been incredibly difficult, and knowing that we're not connecting and showing up for each other in the way that is the best for either of us in the way that we need to. And also, I think we both had a lot of fear about what it would look like if we just said, hey, I don't think this is working anymore. And through that series of unfortunate events of that, also at the same time, parallel to that experience is this internal knowing that's becoming so much more solid and real. And funnily enough, I read a book called Untamed by Glennon Doyle, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years ago. And in it, it talks about how she's asking herself about her interest and attraction to women internally. And she was like, oh gosh, if only I had another life, maybe I could experience that. And in the book, she's like, as if we have more than one life. And there was something about that quote when I read that book that scared me to death, because it felt like I knew that I was going to have to make a decision. Mm-hmm. And then there's just fear. Like, what are my kids going to think? What if I wreck our entire family? What if all these different things? So that's happening. Then there's all these things that are happening in my relationship with my ex-husband that sort of make all those decisions easier. I just became more comfortable with saying that that is not a space that is healthy for me any longer, or for him, and having the courage to walk away from that many years. So that's all happening kind of on the left. And then there's all this internal recognition of what's happening in my attraction or curiosity about women. And through this process, it's not been a conversation that my ex and I hadn't had, that he's always known. And he actually was always very open to say, hey, if that's ever something you want to experience, you'll have my support, which I so appreciate. And I wasn't going to do anything that would wreck my family. And I kind of always said, if owning my true self was going to be something that happened in this life, then the universe would just have to say, here she is, like plunk somebody down in the middle. I'm very risk averse. I don't go out bar hopping. I'm not a flirt. I'm not getting on apps. I'm not going on blind dates. Like, I was not going to seek anything out. That's just not how I operate. And so, yeah, for all I know, I could have said I'm coming out, and then I could have just become a cat lady lesbian by myself from now until I die. But the universe also listens to us. And so I was always like, well, if that's ever supposed to be a thing, then somebody will show up. And she did, in the most crazy way. And it was so profound and instantaneous that I couldn't not see what that was. And so then after that, it was easy. Like, I have no questions. I have no fear. We actually were just talking the other day. I think a lot of people ask, like, so what would you think if I told you I was gay? Trying to, like, test the waters a little bit. And I didn't. I just told everybody that I met someone and this is who I am and this is how I'm operating now. And how they felt or thought about it would be something that they would have to work out for themselves. But life is too short to not be who you are completely. And I just don't want to have a part of that existence anymore. So.
Oh, that is so cool. So in my mind, the whole time you've been talking, I know everybody has probably seen that picture of a woman who's standing naked and there is just, all you see is like a, I don't even know what you call it, help me out here, like chipping away at the outer and you start seeing a different woman break through.
Yes.
Have you seen that picture, Scott? Have you seen that picture?
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So that is like, I'm sitting there thinking about that, just going, oh, wow, that's again, that butterfly coming out of, the cocoon. But so once you decided, once it was easy, then you told, who was the first person you told besides, let's skip the husband from 20 years ago or 27 years ago. Who was the first person you told?
So I think there was a couple people that I felt very, very safe with and tested the waters. 3, actually, you being one of them. There were 2 other friends of mine that I'm like, hey, I think this is a thing that I'm not sure I can deny any longer. Over the last probably 3 years. After everything sort of came to a head and decisions needed to be made, then I went to my kids. So, because that was going to tear me up too, right? Like, I adore my children and I've worked very hard to create a life for them, the best I knew how, right? It wasn't always perfect for sure, but I love them dearly. And now I'm going to get emotional. So having my kids accept me and this life was the most important. I can handle other people saying no. Having them decide that they wouldn't want to be in my life would have been hard. And I knew that I was going to have to be okay with that too. So I went to my older children first and I was like, hey, there's all this stuff happening over here on the left in our family, as you know it, that's going to require some change. Anyway, that was going to happen anyway. And then also there's this part of me that you need to know about. And I have the best freaking kids. So tell my 17-year-old and she's like, is this my mom coming out to me? And I go, yeah, I guess it is. And she's like, well, it's about time.
Wow.
And she references,
which one of your kids was the one that was, this was so funny because this is what I love about the story with your kids. You were telling them, not only were they just like, okay, well, whatever, they were authentically themselves and were sarcastic like every freaking teenager could be. Was it Adam that was like, something about you driving a Subaru? Can you tell that story? What was that? Because I laughed at that.
Yes. So, obviously this has been a huge transition for everyone and it's also affected my children deeply. And so, I'm telling my son, Adam, and I said, so there's this other thing you need to know about me. And I feel like it's really important that I am true to myself and whatever. And, he's like, well, like, duh, Mom, you bought a white Subaru Outback. Like, that's the poster car for every lesbian in the country. And he's like, and you have a full sleeve tattoo. And yeah, like, duh. And
which is
I
hilarious.
Appreciated that so much. I was like, well, you could have clued me in. Like, my kids are all like, duh, Mom. And I'm thinking, it never occurred to you to be like, hey, Mom, are you really living your authentic self? But that's okay. That's a journey you have to go on for yourself, regardless of what other people say. But
and
I
when
was
you told me that,
so
that was
much
funny.
relief.
So Jesse, what was the age range of your kids at that time?
I guess, let me think. At the time, my oldest daughter would have been 23. Um, she and her partner would have been expecting their first baby, my first grandbaby, and then the youngest was 9.5.
Okay. So they were of age of understanding.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Did they all? So did you sit down? You didn't set them down as a group. Did you individually talk to them?
Most of it was individual. Yeah, really every conversation I
Okay.
think was individual. Um, yeah, and I was so grateful for the acceptance. And, obviously there's pain involved, right? Like their life is changing forever because of
Yes.
certain aspects of this. But overwhelmingly, yeah, just so much acceptance and love and like just shrugging, like, oh, okay, that's what we're doing now. Cool.
What's neat about your story, it's not that much different than mine. Mine was through a divorce, but I know there was a certain time that I felt like when I knew something needed to happen, you almost felt selfish. Am I doing this? I'm going to tear up the family. Am I being selfish by doing this? But what I found out, and I hope you did too, is at the end when it's all over, when you can be your true self, when you can be the person you're supposed to be, you actually have better relationships and you're easier to be with even for your kids.
Oh, absolutely. I think that was one of the things over especially the last year and a half. There was all of the weeping and gnashing of teeth and sackcloth and ashes and just really struggling on all aspects everywhere. And a sort of like white knuckling your existence. Like if I just hold on and all this will, like, we can just keep our shit together, it'll all be fine. And then when it all crashes, there is this immense sense of relief. And all of a sudden, I have so much more energy and bandwidth for my kids and for their experience and for other friendships and aspects of my life. There's just this great expanse that's available now that I had been very, very small and contained for a long time, so it was harder to tap into that.
Well, and I can tell you from experience, I'll say the last 3 years, you have been in what I will call a chaotic realm. There was it was always things coming at you. It was like just things were constantly coming at you. And where I know you are such a positive person, you always kept this brave face, but I could, like, you and I would talk and I would hear things and I'd be like, oh, this is not easy for her. This is not good for her. Oh, she's trying to fix this. She's trying to figure this out. She's trying to do all these things. And I will tell you, it was kind of funny the day you got your house, when you moved out, because that's a story in and of itself. There was some chaos within, like, the divorce and her moving from a house and that. But when she finally said, you know what, screw it, I've got to do what is good for me and the kids and not chaos. And she kind of let go of everything else. It was almost like I felt a breath from you. And I think that's the thing, is that you keep getting to take these breaths as you become authentic. And I get to see, I get to see my old friend again, and that's the more beautiful part for me, is that you were married, you were still I won't say you weren't authentic, because I think for the time that we met, we were both authentic. And as we've grown and changed, we've found something different. But that's the thing that I feel like has happened, is that I'm starting to see my calm, brilliant, just not in the chaos friend. Yes. And it's been really good. Such a good thing.
It really is. And I think fear is a funny thing, like letting go. letting go of so many things. I just feel like this
Mhm.
last couple of years, that's all I've done is let go, let go, let go, let go, let go, and letting go of the address and that like kind of final act of, I don't know, stepping into my own thing was really hard. And I was actually just telling my dad this morning, I'm like, gosh, if I would have known how peaceful I would feel again, I would have not fought so hard
Mhm.
internally for this place. Yeah, letting go and not letting fear dictate feels so important.
So, what was the hardest
Really ask.
part of all this? Was it telling friends? Was it telling family? Did you end up losing friends or any family that didn't want to connect with you afterwards?
No, I've been, uh, Scott, that's the thing is really once I quit fighting with myself and just said, I can't anymore. Like there's just this surrender, um, not only to what I knew I needed to let go of, but also what I wanted to step into. It's been so easy. I am so incredibly grateful for my friends, my family. I've not heard really any negativity. You know, for the people that are in my life, they're so incredibly supportive. Talking to Connie, she was like, "Oh, cool. I can't wait to meet her." Like it's just been my family has been incredibly supportive. It's very much like we just want to see you happy. Um Also all family who live in a very tiny town in conservative Northwest Kansas. So and I even told some of them, I'm like, I know that this information might come as a shock to you, and I know that you might feel a kind of way about it. That's cool. You absolutely can. And it was funny. So I was having this conversation with my aunt, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, it's just so good to see you happy." And we were kind of joking around. I was joking around with my cousin, and then my cousin looked at my aunt, and she's like, "That's the Jess I remember." And my aunt kind of
Mhm.
teared up and she's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm so glad you're back." And I broke down because I thought I had kept it together and I was smiling and nodding and I had shrunk myself to nothingness almost. And so, yeah, it just feels good to find joy. I knew so clearly that I didn't know what that felt like 3 years ago,
Yes,
but I
I
didn't know
understand
how
that.
to get it back
Yeah. You
and
know, sometimes
grasping.
sometimes I think it's for me at least, and maybe the same for you. You replay the story in your head of what it's going to look like when you come out, and it's going to be all this chaos. It's going to be people pissed off. It's going to be people not supporting, and you're going to have to find this different group of friends, and you're going to have, my life's going to totally change, and who knows what's going to happen. And I think a lot of people, that's that story they play in their head, but it's not
Mhm.
realistic. I think we always go to the worst case scenario.
Mhm. Mhm.
Well, I do have a
Mhm.
question because we live in the Bible Belt, and I'm really surprised to hear that you've not had some pushback. And maybe not so much from your friends and family, but living here in the buckle of the Bible Belt, have you experienced any negativity? If you have, how did you handle it? Or was it just a thing where it's like, yeah, that person's an idiot, and then you go on? Tell me a little bit about if you've had any of those experiences.
So, I think I have not. I haven't had any experiences directly or indirectly that I said, "Oof, that didn't feel very good." Um, a couple things to that. One, I think I might be oblivious to a lot of it because I haven't always been gay.
Yeah.
And so I don't know what that would look like. My partner has, you know, she's been out since she had graduated from high school. So she has experienced a lot of bigotry and hatred. So she's on a very high alert. She comes from a place of being on high alert, which I appreciate because I am probably oblivious to the looks and things. It just it won't register. Also, I'm unless she and I are together, I'm very femme presenting, so it's not like anybody would go, "Oh, well, obviously she's a lesbian. So individually, I've never experienced any bigotry. There was only one place that I walked in and I was with her, and it felt like I needed to be a little bit mindful. um, but yeah, I haven't experienced anything.
So do you think that it's harder for a man to come out gay or a woman, or do you think it's kind of equally as challenging?
I don't know. I mean, I'm a new baby gay, and so I don't know that I would want to speak for other people. I will say, however, in my experience and from watching people around me make hard decisions in their life,
Uh-huh.
being authentically yourself is freaking hard, kind of just anyway. And so, because we do love our families and humans thrive on connection, and anything that we perceive that would threaten that connection is scary. So I couldn't say whether it would be more difficult for a male or female. I think being authentically yourself in an environment where you might lose connection is just hard.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I think that's very true too. All in all. So if you had any advice, and I love that you say I'm a baby gay, but being that you're still new in it, it's probably the best time to hear. What would you recommend to people that are questioning their sexuality, or even a family member who has somebody who has come out and they're questioning the sexuality of somebody, or here's the thing. I don't know that family members and friends question the sexuality. I think what they do is they worry. They worry that this person is going to get persecuted, or they worry that this person is going to get hurt somehow. That's the thing and I know it's a fear. Again, it's fear for the family.
Yeah.
From the family, sorry. What would you recommend to somebody questioning their sexuality and thinking, okay, I'm on this tight wire. I don't know whether to come out or not. What is your advice or your steps to doing, what would you just recommend to them?
Sure. I think one of the things that feels really important, and this is important for everyone, probably regardless of their sexuality, is as humans, we struggle liking ourselves very well, or being kind to ourselves. So I have done a lot of work over the last 3 years, therapy, coaching, various things that allowed me to feel really, really comfortable with just me as a person, regardless of where my sexuality, I'm okay. So if for people who are questioning their sexuality, I think when you get confident in that you are okay just the way you are because you're human and you feel really comfortable with yourself, then all the rest of that will fall into place and you'll be less concerned about how other people perceive you. For family, I think, gosh, dang it, just love people. I was so clear with my kids when I raised them. The thing that I knew, and you don't know anything when you're having babies, but the one thing that I did know that I wanted to do the best that I could was just love them. I never wanted them to walk into a room and feel like they didn't belong. I just wanted them to know that they were okay just the way they are. And so for all those fears, persecution, fear, those are real and true things that happen, and it's awful. And if we set the example of love and kindness and generosity and acceptance and curiosity, my gosh, just get curious and ask some questions and not make assumptions about how people are operating in the world, it would probably go a long ways.
Whew.
No.
Yeah, wow. I
Yeah, I
agree.
love
And
that.
that's all around, not just for
Yeah.
sexuality. I have so many things to say about that because you raised your kids to be kind, but ultimately I would agree with that's the one thing we keep coming back to, Scott, is people either through therapy or something, finding themselves, and then they get to transition a little more beautifully. Isn't
Well,
that something we feel like we've done, like heard from you and I for sure, and now with Jesse, and I know we have several others who have done it too.
yeah, I just think that you owe it to yourself and your family to figure out who the true you, no matter what situation you're in. I think it's figuring out who you are the best person as. And
Mm-hmm.
if you are the best person as something else, you got to make that transition because it is going to make you a better father. It's going to make you a better mother. It's going to make you a better spouse. And I think you owe it to yourself as much as you do the family that's around you.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jesse, to end the podcast, is there anything you want to add to your story that you feel like is really, really important?
Well,
Or do you feel like you have told what you want to say?
and I also want her to, I want to end with knowing where you're at. I feel like I'm on the edge of you're probably happy, you're in a great relationship. I want to hear more about that at the end.
Oh, sure. So yes, I'm incredibly happy. I think one of the coolest things to have come out of this, and I've shared this with Connie before, growing up in a space of religion. And I want to be very clear about there's religion and then there's spirituality and a personal relationship. I'm speaking very much from a religious standpoint. I remember them like always being taught about this peace that surpasses all understanding. And it just seemed so out of grasp, like it was something I was supposed to find and never could. And last summer, when I turned my life upside down and seemingly should have been terrified, I have been the most peaceful that I have ever existed in my life. It's so freaking cool to not just walk around a ball of anxiety all the time and just have peace and confidence. Being in a relationship with someone and having a very clear set of boundaries, like there are certain things that I will not put myself through. There's certain things that I just won't accept for my existence any longer. And having the safety to articulate those to my partner and the vulnerability of being able to say, hey, this doesn't feel good. Can we figure it out? And be in a relationship where that's possible, of saying, yes, absolutely, let's figure this out, is such a cool experience. Really being able to say, oof, yeah, that was all my shit that I just brought to the table. Sorry about that. I'll go deal with it on my own. Or, oh, yeah, okay, I think maybe that's an us thing or whatever. It's just a cool place to be. I'm just having a really good time being peaceful and not being afraid anymore.
Well, I love that story. I think this is very inspirational. I know there's people out there that are going through that same thoughts, views, transitions, and knowing that you can get to the other side and see some peace and
Mm-hmm.
have that calm nature and be the better person. I think that's kind of the key to all these stories.
It is.
Mm-hmm. It
Jesse,
really is.
thank
and
you
I think
so
there's
much.
less fear overall. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks
you
for
so
having
much
me.
for
I
this.
so appreciate it.
I can't tell you how proud I am of you. And like I said, I get to see my old friend again,
Mm-hmm.
without the chaos. And
Yeah.
I love that you are happy. I love that your kiddos are happy. I love that your journey has led you to this. And it's such a beautiful one. And I so thank you for being on here and sharing your story. And I pray that it helps other people and, helps them get something out of this, whatever it is. I can't, define that for others, but it was beautiful hearing about your journey. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we could have many discussions with you on topics.
I know it might be like, that's probably how we're going to start feeling a lot, Scott, is
I
just
believe
we
you're
want to
right.
talk to people for hours upon hours. So, all right. Well, again, thank you so much for your story. And do you have any other questions, Scott?
Oh, I've got too many to even ask, so no. We'll have to just
Well,
close
we'll
it
just
out.
have to do another one again.
Absolutely. This was
That'd be
great.
fun.
Yeah.
That was great. Thank you so much. And
Thank
we
you,
will
Jess.
talk to you soon.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Our Life Beyond. We really hope that you found our discussion insightful and inspiring, or at least brought a smile to your day. If you did enjoy this episode, please consider subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform and leave us a review. For more information, resources, or show notes, visit our website at ourlifebeyond.com. You can also follow us on social media. Search for us on Facebook at Our Life Beyond. We would love to hear from you, our listeners, so feel free to reach out with your questions, comments, or suggestions through our Contact Us page at ourlifebeyond.com or on social media. And once again, thank you for joining us on this journey. Till next time, remember, life beyond any challenge is possible, and we're here to navigate it with you. Stay strong, stay positive, and keep moving forward.